Hey guys, Brad here today from the OFAH Heritage Centre. Last month, we spent a little bit of time learning all about Ontario's most popular upland game bird species, grouse. This month, we'll aim to examine 4 other popular upland game bird species. In this month's lesson, we'll aim to answer 5 questions about these upland game bird species. How do we identify upland game birds? Where do they live? What do they eat? What are they well known for? And can you harvest these species in Ontario? So stick around today as we learn all about Ontario's upland game bird species. How do we identify upland game birds? In Ontario, there are 4 popular species of upland game birds, other than grouse that is. These species are the ring-necked pheasant, mourning doves, bobwhite quail, and the American woodcock. Ring-necked pheasant is the largest upland game bird species in Ontario. Pheasants are about 50% larger than most chickens, and they're taller and slimmer than chickens as well. They're large-bodied, long-necked, and long-tailed. Males and females look different from one another, which we refer to as sexual dimorphism. Males are unique and distinguishable from nearly any other bird species. Males have a distinct green head with a big red eye patch, a white ring around their necks with a coppery colored body with black and white spots. The white ring around their neck is where they get their names. Their copper-colored body is iridescent and it changes colors, and it can shine with colors ranging from purples to greens and even blues. Females are much plainer looking than males. They're mostly brown in color, marked with black and white specks which are mostly found on the backs and wings. Pheasants also have spikes on the back of their legs above their feet called spurs. They use these spurs to defend themselves from predators, but also to fight with other pheasants for mates, but we'll discuss that behavior later. Mourning doves are very common birds to see throughout most of the province of Ontario. Mourning doves do not display differences between the males and females. They're mainly a brownish-gray color with some specific markings. They're mostly this gray-brown on the upper parts of their body with black markings on their wings. Mourning doves have a pale peach-colored underside and a long, thin tail. Mourning doves also have a black bill with pinkish legs and feet. In flight, you can see their long, fan-like tail with whitish tips and gray on the underside of their wings. Bobwhite quail are the rarest game birds in Ontario, and they're very small birds. These quail are just a little bigger than the size of a robin, but with a more rounded body shape. Males and females do look slightly different from each other, and the best way to tell is by looking at their head. Quail are patterned in browns, grays, and blacks with a mixed pattern that helps to camouflage them very well. Males have a bold black and white head pattern, while females have a brown head with a buffy colored throat and eyebrow. American woodcock are a popular migratory species, and they can be found throughout the province during certain times of the year. They're a unique bird with a strange-looking head structure. Woodcock are plump, short-legged shorebirds with very long, straight bills. Their bills are found lower down on the front of their head than most birds, and their large black eye is found further back and higher up on their skulls. Woodcocks' large heads, short necks, and short tails give them a bulbous look on the ground, as well as in flight. Their wings are broad and rounded compared to most other birds. Woodcock are very well camouflaged in their light browns, blacks, buffs, and gray-brown tones. Their face is a buffy color with a blackish crown. They're light gray across the neck and back with dark and light patterned shoulders and brown wings. And their undersides are buff colored to almost orange. Where do they live? Ring-necked pheasant are not very common in Ontario, and their sightings can be quite rare, except for in certain areas in the south and southwestern parts of the province. They're mostly found in a few specific areas, such as Pelee Island, Norfolk County, and other areas in the furthest southwest parts of Ontario. Ringneck pheasants thrive best in fields and along field edges of forested habitat, but they cannot survive through the winter in areas of the province which receive more than about 150 centimeters of snowfall. Mourning doves are migratory birds, and they're mainly only found in the province from early spring through late fall. They migrate south for the winter as they do not thrive in the cold winters of Ontario. Mourning doves prefer to live in farms, towns, open woods, roadsides, and grasslands, and they can be found in almost any kind of open or semi-open habitat in warmer parts of North America. These areas include forest clearings, farmland, suburbs, and prairies. They're most commonly found in edge habitats, so that's habitats that have both trees and open ground, but sometimes they can be found in entirely treeless areas. Bobwhite quail are very rare in Ontario, although they used to be found all across the northern parts of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. Nowadays, they are only found in the most southwestern parts of the province, including Walpole Island First Nation and the surrounding areas. Quail live in agricultural fields, grasslands, open pine or pine hardwood forests, and rangeland spaces. They seem to avoid mature woodlands, inhabiting instead the early stages of regrowth after a fire, after farming, logging, or other disturbances to the forest. During snowfalls, bobwhites depend on woody cover to prevent snow from reaching the ground and blocking their feeding habitat. American woodcocks are interesting birds, and they can be found throughout the province during the warmer months of the year when they migrate into and across the province. Woodcocks nest in young, shrubby, deciduous forests, old fields, and mixed forest agricultural urban areas across Ontario. They display for mating in forest openings and old fields in the springtime, and they often use clearings for roosting in the summer. Woodcocks depend on moist, wooded areas and wet meadows in young woodlands. They prefer to have a thick understory for cover and to find food. Woodcocks migrate south, and they do spend the winter in similar habitats, but in the southern parts of the USA. What do they eat? For ringneck pheasants, in fall and winter, they eat seeds, especially grain from fields. They also eat grasses, leaves, roots, wild fruits, nuts, and insects. Their spring and summer diet is similar, but with a greater emphasis on animal prey, insects, and fresh greenery. Ringneck pheasants eat insects such as grasshoppers, beetles, caterpillars, crickets, and ants, as well as snails and earthworms. Ringneck pheasants forage in grasslands, hayfields, woodland edges, and brushy areas. They sometimes pick grain from cow manure in pastures as well. Pheasants take up most of their food from the ground, scratching or digging with their bills. They can retrieve roots or seeds from as deep as 3 inches below the soil's surface. Mourning doves eat mostly seeds. Seeds, in fact, make up 99% of a mourning dove's diet at certain times of the year. These seeds include cultivated grains and even peanuts, as well as wild grasses, weeds, herbs, and occasionally berries. They are known to eat snails and other small insects. Mourning doves are known to eat quite a bit. They're known to eat roughly between 12 to 20% of their body weight per day. Bobwhite quail eat mostly seeds and leaves, with some amount of insects during the spring through fall. Chicks are fed mostly insects until they are 6 to 8 weeks old. And these quail feed as a group, scratching and pecking through leaf litter or foraging on low-hanging plants. When snow falls, bobwhite quail will seek out patches of bare ground under brushy areas. Their staple food of seeds comes from agricultural crops, weeds, forest plants, and other vegetation. During the fall and winter, they eat many legume seeds, ragweed seeds, pine seeds, and acorns. And in the spring, they eat more leafy green parts of plants, while in the summer, their diet includes grass, fruits, and insects. American woodcocks eat earthworms and other invertebrates they find in the soil, including snails, millipedes, spiders, flies, beetles, and ants. Woodcock forage by probing the soil with their long bills. These bills have flexible upper jaws for capturing and extracting earthworms and other insects from the ground. They're known to rock their bodies backwards and forwards as they forage, shifting their weight heavily from foot to foot. It is thought that the vibrations from this motion may prompt earthworms to move underground, making slight sounds that the woodcock may be able to hear or feel. Woodcock are also known to eat small amounts of plant material, such as grasses, sedges, and members of the rose family. What are they known for? Ringneck pheasants are known for the way they battle for mates. Competitors sometimes resort to physical combat. After a series of escalating threat displays, fighting cocks, which is what we call males, flutter upwards breast to breast and then bite at each other's wattles, which is the front part of their neck. They may take turns leaping at each other with their bills, claws, and spurs deployed. Usually, the challenger runs away before long, and these fights are rarely fatal. Mourning doves are known for the way they mate. They're monogamous birds, meaning that when they choose a mate, they usually will mate for life. A male and a female dove who have paired up will stay together for most of their lives. And pairs who have been known to split up during migration will always reconnect and pair back up at the end of winter's migration for the summer breeding season. Bobwhite quail are also known for how they pair up, but not with a mate. Quail are birds who like to pair up in large groups, which we call coveys. At night, coveys usually roost on the ground, or occasionally in vegetation. They roost in close-packed, outward-facing groups. These groups will form a circle with their tails pointing towards the center, likely to conserve heat and stay on the alert. Woodcocks are well known for the mating dance that males perform. They breed early in spring, with males beginning their courtship displays, which we call sky dancing, at night and dusk. This activity begins in March or April. It happens at twilight along their spring migration route, as well as on their breeding grounds. They perform a quirky mating ritual all their own. The spectacle of sky dancing begins with the bird issuing a series of nasally peent calls from the ground while dancing, before flying straight up into the sky. Here's a play-by-play on what ensues from the great naturalist Aldo Leopold's Sky Dance essay. Suddenly, the peenting ceases, and the bird flutters skywards in a series of wide spirals, emitting a musical twitter. Up and up he goes, the spirals steeper and smaller, the twittering louder and louder, until this performer is only a speck in the sky. Then, without warning, he tumbles like a crippled plane, giving voice in a soft, liquid warble that a March bluebird might envy. At a few feet from the ground, he levels off and returns to his peenting ground, usually to the exact spot where their performance began. And there, this whole cycle begins again. Our last question today is, can you harvest these upland game birds in Ontario? The answer is yes. To hunt for upland game birds in Ontario, you will need a valid outdoors card with a hunter accreditation, a federal firearms license if you plan to hunt with a firearm, And if you plan to hunt for mourning doves or woodcock, you will also need a migratory game bird stamp and permit. Depending upon the region of the province, seasons open around mid-September and generally finish around the end of December. These upland game bird species are usually hunted one of two ways. They're often hunted with bird dogs, either flushing dogs who are trained to flush the birds within shooting distance, or pointing dogs who are trained to point the birds until a hunter can get close enough to flush the birds themselves. These dogs are then trained to scent and retrieve any dead or injured birds and to gently return them to the hunter. These birds are often hunted also by foot without dogs. In this case, hunters simply move through the bush slowly or down trails, looking and listening for any signs of these birds or their movements. This method can be very tough, as in certain regions, species can be very wary and can flush quickly out of range for a hunter. Hunting without a dog also brings the challenge of retrieving your own injured or dead birds. And with their aptitude for camouflage, some of these species can sometimes be practically impossible to find. Just a reminder while hunting that in the province of Ontario, it is illegal to shoot from, on, or across the traveled portion of a trail or roadway. So, if you see any of these species along a roadway or trail, make sure you follow the birds off trail or road before shooting. I hope you've learned a lot about these interesting upland game species. Now that you have, keep an eye out for them as you travel throughout the province. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video and then comment below. Don't forget to check out the resources section on our webpage. There, you'll find free printable resource material like mini lessons and activity pages that follow up the virtual lessons. And please subscribe to stay connected as we learn together outside the classroom.